Hey there. Thanks for tuning into this month's episode of the Fraternus Forge podcast. Really excited to bring you this episode. Our guest this month is Cody Beresford. Cody is a close friend here in the Nashville, Tennessee area. He's part of our young adult Catholic community in town, and he's also the mastermind behind the musical project KNSTNTYN. Really cool stuff coming out of that project. Cody's got some really cool ideas when it comes to songwriting, especially song texture and like size and scope. If you're into synth pop bands from like the mid to late 80s, like Depeche Mode or New Order, or maybe the early 2000s, like the Presets, definitely give Cody a listen. Really cool stuff coming from that project. You can also, since Cody uses more, healthy, heaven-oriented lyrics in his songs, you can listen to these pieces of music without worrying about the state of your eternal soul. So, cheers. If you want to check that project out, that's KNSTNTYN on Spotify. It's spelled KNSTNTYN. Definitely give them a listen. And really excited for this conversation, excited to share it with you. It was really life-giving for me. We talk a little bit in the middle of the episode about creativity and music because we're both musicians and have that in common. I was excited to share that with Cody. But Cody is also a fierce debater on topics of morality and faith. He's very, very opinionated and holds some really, really good points in this episode about what a healthy sex life looks like for you and your partner if you're a believer, as well as what masculinity in today's day and age should look like and what should guys like aspire towards in terms of like their chief virtues. And I was very, very much filled up by this conversation, and I'm excited to share it with you as well. So yeah, thank you so much for tuning in. Last little order of business: if you've got ideas for future guests, topics you want to hear us cover, or if you just want to drop a note and say, hey Matt, what's up? You can do that by sending an email to fraternusforge@gmail.com. That's the best way to get in touch with me. Make your suggestions, because I definitely want this to be a useful forum to you. I want to talk about stuff that's meaningful to you. And just for the record, you can always volunteer yourself. Like, you know what? I feel really passionate about this. I have a shirt that you can clip a microphone to. You can always reach out, and I'd be more than happy to invite you on the podcast. All right, that's it for now. Thanks for tuning in. Let's jump into it.
It's an opportunity to do something
Mm-hmm.
where you get to be put in a new environment and meet some new people and kind of go outside of your comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't just turn those down all the time,
Right.
Because like
Right.
who you might become is being put off limits if you do.
Mm-hmm. Like if you sort of look at this opportunity, is what you're saying. Like if you look at this opportunity and say like, oh, this can't be good.
Yeah.
Or like this is not for
Or
me.
you'd start judging it too early.
Mm-hmm.
You could miss out. Like you see a pretty girl, and then like, oh, there's one thing about her, and you're like, oh, maybe not.
Yeah.
Instead of just going over there and talking to her.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what the hell?
I know we've talked a decent amount, and I also know that we're going to talk music, so we'll get to that at some point. But I know that we've talked a decent amount about, I guess I don't want to call it pickup because that's not the same thing. Like pickup is more sleazy. Pickup is more aiming at like one night stands and like sexual gratification. But I know that we've talked about like approaching women in public, being like, I like this person, like, or she's interesting or she's attractive, and finding ways to engage in like a compelling and meaningful way and like trying to build some form of rapport. And I just think that's such an interesting equation because like most of the time people don't do that.
And I think you kind of have to take out almost like, again, like we were talking about earlier, you have to have no end goal involved. It's really just meeting people, whether it's guys or girls or whatever, just for the sake of meeting people. So I was driving down the road yesterday.
Okay.
I was on my way to Starbucks.
Okay.
And there were two girls. One was walking a dog. The other was walking next to her, just dressed absolutely ridiculously.
Okay.
You could see everything. You know what I mean? Like skin tight clothing. So of course it caught my eye, right?
Sure.
So I drove on to Starbucks, which was like a mile down the road. Got out, got Starbucks. As I'm waiting in line for my coffee, I'm like, what are the odds they walk in here?
Okay.
I'm thinking to myself.
Okay.
I sit down and begin to enjoy my coffee, and surprise, surprise,
She walks in.
She walks in.
Yeah.
So I was able to get like a little bit of a closer look, said a couple words, talked to one of them for a couple seconds. and just came to the realization that there was nothing there that I'd be interested in other than the looks.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Or as far as like, not even the looks, to be honest. Like, she's not a bad looking girl, but it was mainly just the way she was dressed that was like interesting. So I think there's a difference too between like a lot of what initially attracts me to a girl is like, I guess you could say how provocatively, or how almost they come across like in a sexual way, or like present that. But
That's
like,
the initial.
yeah, that's the initial thing that catches your eye, because that's, as a guy, that's what you're drawn to. Even though like 9 times out of 10, that's like, it's very rare to find somebody who's able to present that in a classy and good way while still like harnessing it, and at the same time is still somebody I'd be looking or interested in. Because a lot of the times you just like, it's party hoes, party girls, and you're just like,
not so much.
Yeah, like, yeah. Well then, like, as much as I like you, I'm not interested in you. And then the girls you aren't necessarily attracted to right off the bat, that you'd have to get to know, are the ones that you would be interested in. But like, you can't see them from across the room, because they just don't catch your eye, for better or worse.
I think that there's some of that. I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Like, I actually, so I was talking, so we have a mutual friend, Hudson.
Yeah.
And so we were talking about this the other day, this sort of idea, like you said, the initial thing that attracts most guys is like how this girl looks. And how she's sort of like hotness. Exactly. Yeah. And, but that only goes so far. That only gets you so far. Like, in a lot of ways, it just gets you to like the initial interaction where you two actually start having a conversation. Yeah. And then you sort of see, hey, is there a communication compatibility here? Because I went on a date. Can you believe that? Like, hey, bud.
Wait, how did you get her number?
So I was actually set up on a date.
Okay, that's a very fair, yeah. Cool.
I wish I could have had some like gangster story of me walking up and being like, yo, hey,
girl, here's what it is.
You're a woman, I'm a man. What's up? But yeah, so got set up on this blind date. We went to Edley's in East Nashville, and I'm standing there in Edley's, and I'm like, I don't know what to expect. Like, God, I guess just like help me be receptive to whoever this woman is, because someone was like, I think you two would be great. This girl's got her stuff together. And so she walks in, and it's like, bam.
Bombshell?
Yeah, bombshell.
Nice.
I was like, whoa, okay. Because I had no idea what to expect. Right, exactly. And so I'm sitting there, and I'm like, okay, Matt, like, keep it together, bud. Like, hang on, bud. And the first conversation was like a first date conversation. Like, hey, just getting to know you. Like, we laughed a little bit. Call it like a 6 out of 10.
Is she Catholic?
Christian.
Okay.
Christian. This is like a while ago. Like, yeah, we're not dating anymore. But the second date just sucked. Like, it was just a super shallow conversation. And I tried like a couple of times to get us to go talk about something a little bit deeper. I probably could have been a little more direct in like the questions that I asked, but like, she doesn't naturally gravitate towards that.
She's not naturally a deep thinker.
Yeah, like she seemed very like surface. Like, I went on a boat the other day and had like 12 White Claws, and this dude hit on me. Like, great, cool,
What do you think? So, like, with your analysis, what do you think was going into everything? Give me your analysis of all of it. Like, how would you break it down as far as like what was going on and like
between us?
Because the first date was good.
The first date was okay. Like, the first date was a first date.
Yeah, you're still figuring things out.
Exactly.
You're still spending the first 20 minutes getting over how good she is.
Right. Yeah. I think that, and that actually is a really good metaphor for what we're talking about here with physical looks only getting you so far. It's not that they don't count for anything.
I think they do count. Yeah. Beauty is a created thing.
Mm-hmm.
Beauty has its place.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's the effect of it is short-lived or fleeting. Because there'll be times when I'll like look at someone and be like, wow, like, you're beautiful, and then like other times look at the exact same person and be like,
Here's a weird thing, and I'm gonna say it.
Okay.
I feel like there's a lot of religious women, Christian girls, Catholic girls who are Christian, who almost don't know how to use that superpower.
Mm.
You know what I mean? And because they're so afraid of crossing the line with that superpower, they never open it up or out of the
They don't
box.
touch it at
and there's
all.
like that whole side of themselves which is undeveloped.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the same can be said for the guys.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, I think there's a certain thing to being able to, like, open that up a little bit and take it to like 40-50% and play into it and catch somebody's eye or do that kind of thing and begin something like that in order to get to know somebody better and do that and just not abuse it. You know what I mean? Like there's a place between 0 and 100, and there's a for most things, and so it's like being able to use that in moderation where you can still dress really nice and like wear clothes that show off that are good looking and be able to put yourself in a place where you can have that attraction to other people, but at the same time still be classier about it and still be like a high-minded person. Does that make sense?
It does.
Where you're using something as a tool instead of like beating someone over the head with it. It's a little bit of salt, not a showering
just like
of salt.
a handful of it.
Yeah, but you
and
also,
it's not none.
Yeah, you shouldn't fear the salt.
Right.
Like, God gave you the salt. Use the salt.
That we are salt of the earth. We are salty on the earth.
We are salty while on the earth.
Yeah, I agree. The idea being that beauty is God given. Beauty is created.
Yeah.
And so it's like that. Would you say that it's like that passage? And I know that this passage in the Bible is referring more towards like our faith and how we like share that with others, but it's like nobody lights a candle and then hides it under a bushel. Like he puts it on a table so it gives light to the whole house. Have you heard that passage?
Yeah, I have. And I think it's one of those things like anything you do really, really well is going to be like a good thing. Other people are going to look at you and be like, oh, I like how he does that. Or I like how she does that. Or that's really cool.
Yeah.
Or like, even if it's not maybe my style, like I can respect it. There's something really cool about what they're doing. I think so much of the problem with like so culture is like super sexual, right? It's like everything's sex, everything's sexual. You know, every advertisement's trying to sell you something. Like it's all. And so the reaction to that, I feel like, in religious communities has been to get rid of it completely, as opposed to use it in like a really good way, you know, or show what the happy medium is, or just kind of be a normal person.
That tracks.
Yeah.
That really does track. Yeah, because here's a question. Do you think it's because sexual sin is often like it's railed against so much, and like rightfully so,
as it should be.
Yeah. But it's railed against so often in not just Christianity, but like all world religions almost. And because of that, people sort of treat it. Did you say Pandora's box earlier?
No.
But they sort of treat it like Pandora's box, where it's like,
this
thing has to stay under lids, like we can't open it, can't use it at all.
Yeah, and I think that's a detriment, because I think then you get a bunch of people who are less attractive, like in the eyes of the world, in the sense that like somebody who's not a Christian isn't going to be like, is going to be looking at you and kind of being like, oh, I don't necessarily, like there's something missing here. You know what I mean? Like this person's not all they could be. Like you, like as like a child of like God, you're supposed to be all you can be, and that's all your parts. You know, like as a guy, you keep in decent shape. You know, there's certain things you do, and it's like, oh, I'm not just gonna not do this because other people were in good shape and they killed other people back in the day. You know what I mean? Like you've got to know how to use. That's a terrible analogy. You've got to know how to use things to be effective with it, but to use it in a good way. Like everything's a tool. Everything's a tool. Like sex and sexuality obviously are not bad. They're very, very good. So it's how do you use them in a good way, and like how, like what are some models of that so that other people can look at that and be like, oh, I'm going to be like that. Like that's the right way to walk. That's the right way to do it, so they can live a more full life. Because, ultimately, like I do feel like it would be easier for people to find partners within faith communities if people were more. If people understanding of how to use that in a good way without, you know what I mean, being caught up with it.
Without crossing a line.
Yeah, and there's like obviously maturity to that and strength to that. But there is with everything. There's that with using a gun. There's that with having a credit card. There's that with, like the answer isn't get rid of it. The answer is use it well and use it to your advantage so you can live the most full life possible. Avoid sin, be strong.
Yeah, agree. It's sort of like avoiding that, like there's like a gap in one's life.
Yeah.
Because you haven't, like, and this thing is there, like, for your holiness. Like, like a beautiful woman is made that way. Like, her beauty is part of her holiness and her call to holiness. Like, guys who are, like, given a cement jawline like you and David Joniak and
hey, don't
a few other
exclude
guys.
yourself from that, bro. I see ya.
Hey, just humble brag, right? My chin's decent, you know, it's decent. But, like, that's part of your call to holiness. Your cement jawline is part of your call to holiness. And, like, if you cover that up and just, like, sort of deny that part of yourself, then I feel like you're missing out on an opportunity to draw nearer to God and, like, leverage that in a good way. Now, to your point, there's a way to misuse that.
Yeah.
But I do think that this middle ground somewhere between 0 and 100 is the sweet spot.
No, 100%. Okay, think about, like, you're dating and, like, the girl you're with or you don't know how to flirt at all.
Mm-hmm.
You know, or take, like, steps towards that. That's unattractive to a point.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, don't know how to express interest, don't know how to, now, okay, say you're with a girl, and you know all her values are good, you know her morals are good, you've had that conversation the first day, you guys are out with drinks the next day, and she's, like, flirting heavily with you, you know what I mean? And making good eye contact and, like, touching your arm and kind of, like, leaning in, and she's dressed in a, you know, very appealing way without being, like, slutty.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, doesn't that just boost her up, like, through the roof, like, 1,000%?
Yeah.
Because you're like, oh my gosh, like, because she knows how to operate in these different ways, like, she's hot.
Mm-hmm.
She's really, really hot. And, like, as opposed to, like, okay, she could be a great person and have all the right theology and have all that stuff, but if she kind of just sits there coldly or is afraid or, you know what I mean, like, doesn't express herself in that way, you can say, okay, she's diminished in this way because she hasn't developed herself in this way. And it's the same for guys. Like, if you don't know how to communicate those things or come across in a certain way or do that kind of thing, then you are less than what you could be. And it's not so much like, obviously everybody's at a different place of growth, and as you get more comfortable with somebody, that comes out more, but you do still have to, you know, that you can take that further down the line. Okay, you guys are married now. You know what I mean? Like, don't you want that kind of, like, sexy playfulness to exist with somebody who's confident in themselves and knows how to, you know, like, I'm not afraid of this part of myself that wants you. You know, as opposed to somebody who's, like, again, treating it with a 10-foot pole. Yeah,
that makes a lot of sense.
Like, that's really, like, and it's small things that add up, but it's small things that add up to build something really, really beautiful and really, really good. And sometimes those things are then, okay, we're married now. They learn that, and sometimes they don't. Like, I'm sure you've seen lots of couples who, again, either treat it, like, too much like a business partnership, or treat it, you know what I mean? Like, there's no fire, there's no passion, there's no, or these different aspects of, maybe it's just in communication, maybe it's in different things, but it's simply there's aspects of the relationship and themselves that they haven't developed, and so they can't live the fullest expression of relationship in what a God-centric relationship, which is just relationship, because there's no Christian trees, everything's Christian, right? It's supposed to be.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I 100% agree. Go ahead.
Yeah, so it's just kind of a duty that we have for ourselves, and I think the entire, everybody, to kind of recognize, okay, I'm lacking in this way, like, how do I grow in that without, you know what I mean, making that kind of like my aim, or something. Okay, if you want to pop over there, I know you're in the sun.
Oh, I'm actually really enjoying it.
Okay,
the sun's great.
Yeah,
I'm digging it.
Cool.
So coming back to this idea, but thank you. But thank you. So
leave that in there to show my graciousness.
Correct. Your courageousness
and my humility.
Yes. Let it be known to all who are listening that Cody is a model of courage and and humbleness, humility. I agree. Like, Pope John Paul II is someone who talked a lot about and advocated for, like, the beauty of unity between husband and wife. He's got, like, this book called Love and Responsibility, where he sort of outlines the priorities of a mother and father in relationship to one another, like, as a unit and as a couple. And one of the things that he lists in there is like, it's like fulfillment of the sexual urge. Like, so he calls that out.
Yeah.
Like, and there's like a beauty and there's a chemistry to it. Like, he uses some beautiful language that I'm having trouble, like, thinking about right now. But he's very much, like, attuned to the heart of men and women, and, like, knows that God wants that for them. It's part of the human experience. But he also says that within that hierarchy, like, the topmost value is, it's supposed to bring you and your spouse closer to God. Like, it's about your relationship with the Father and sort of becoming a reflection of the Trinity in that way. It's about being open to the prospect of children and then raising them in the faith. That's the second one. And then the third one is the fulfillment of the sexual urge. So, like, you can have, like, a really dynamic, healthy sex life, but if it interferes with your ability to further your spouse's salvation, further your own salvation, or provide a healthy environment for your kids to grow up in the faith, then it's a problem. And I thought that that was a really helpful framework.
I think so. I think also sometimes, though, like, it's just like, that steak looks great. I'm hungry. And I want to eat that steak, you know? And it does further my salvation in the sense that I get to continue living, and I get to enjoy it, and I get to be thankful for enjoying that steak.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And my life is better because I have that steak. And physical pleasures are very real.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
In that sense. You know, it's just like, hey, let's go have a steak.
Yeah, right,
You know?
right.
Let's enjoy the hell out of it.
Yeah.
And thank God and continue with our lives.
Yeah. And I think that there's, I totally agree. Like, I also really like steak. And I think there is a room for that. The distinction that I've been sort of noodling over lately is that love in the worldly sense is like a devouring of the other person. Love in like the worldly sense focuses on like possession and like abolishing boundaries between two people, sort of like absorbing this other person into you. Like, what can I get out of this? Versus like in the Catholic sense or in the Christian tradition, it's more, you have a very skeptical look on your face.
We'll
but that's
see.
okay.
I'll just continue. No,
That's okay.
I'm expressive.
It's more focused on like the gift of self. And there's two extremes. To like there's like what we're shown in like pornographic materials, which is very much like pleasure oriented. And there's no regard for God. There's like it's all about like the physical gratification of like both of the parties. Then there's like what you and I are probably imagining on like the opposite end of the spectrum, where it's like, okay, this is what we're supposed to do because God wants soldiers for his army. So
build the army.
Right, exactly.
Build this army.
Right.
Single-handedly
build this army. So real quick, I may have shared this with you before. And like, again, we're coming back to this sort of like middle ground.
Yeah.
But on the nightmare end of the spectrum, something that I've been afraid of for a while is, like, let's say it's 10 years from now.
Yeah.
And you come over my place, you're married or something like that.
That's
I'm married,
right.
something like that.
Yeah.
And we're standing on like the back deck. Have I told you the story?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, so this is nightmare scenario.
Okay.
So we're standing on the back deck, and like it's not
just a dude. Like, Matt.
Wait a second.
I got you. Let's get out.
Dun. No, so we're saying, and like as far as nightmare scenarios go, this is not that bad. This is like strictly with respect to like like
falling short of the mark that you have.
Exactly,
Yeah,
like conjugal relations, like falling short of that mark. And so we're standing on the back, maybe we've got like a Coors Light or something like that. Like, hey, cheers, bud. Like, I'm flipping burgers or something. And I've got 4 kids running around in the yard. Yeah. Huge blessing, for the record.
Yeah.
And there's like a moment of silence, and I sort of look over at you, and I'm like, hey, see those 4 kids out there? And you sort of like, yeah, like, of course, Matt. Like, we're friends. Like, yeah, I see your kids. And I go, those are the 4 times my wife and I have had sex. That's nightmare scenario.
Oh. Yeah. No, and again, I think you can, like, I think you can kind of get a feel for that, again, when you're getting to know somebody.
Yeah.
You know, like, are some of those smaller things developed there? Are they, like, wholeheartedly leaning into it? You know what I mean? Like, are they excited about those you can kind of tell, like, if somebody's afraid of that side of themselves or not.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why it's important to not be afraid of that side of yourself and recognize your desires are good.
Yeah.
And they're very much needed.
Yes.
And, like, to go back against what you were saying earlier, like, I do think as far as, like, you know, I think possession's a very good thing. I'm a very jealous and possessive person. And I think there's a lot in the world which would say that's not good. You know what I mean? Like, get rid of your ego. Like, you shouldn't be jealous or possessive. Like, that's not what you're looking for in a relationship. But I look at God, super jealous, super possessive, like the most possessive and jealous person there is. And so it's like, I think there's a good side to it, and I think there's a dark side to it. You know what I mean? I do think to a certain point, you are supposed to be absorbed and you are supposed to be one. I think it's not in the devouring sense that you were talking about. I think we both agree on that. Like,
Right.
you're not just using someone. You know what I mean? You're like taking them into you and being like, we're one unit. You know. But I do think, yeah, like the cultivation of pleasure and taking pleasure seriously is very important and is very much needed.
Yeah.
Like you know, like once a month, at least setting aside time to try new things and be in a new place. You know what I mean? Like having date nights is important. Having those different things to kind of keep things alive and maintaining that kind of balance where you're not obviously like some kind of swinger who's like obsessed with sex and like going out there and like it's not controlling you, but it's a tool you were using to the fullest to maximize the pleasure in your life.
Yes,
you know,
definitely.
Because it's like, why not?
Yeah,
you know, if you've got the ability to own a Ferrari, like you should take it out of the garage whenever you can. You know what I mean? Now, it shouldn't be to the detriment of your work or other things, you know, but at the same time, if you feel like going for a spin in that Ferrari, like,
just go for it. Yeah, just go for it. Send it. Yeah,
exactly. Like, enjoy it. Like, God wants us to have pleasurable experiences and to enjoy the most of things, you know, and to enjoy rewards and to live well and like, I think he blesses us with very, very good things for a reason. And like, definitely this is one of the conversations that is on my list of like, before I get married to somebody, or even like, as soon as I start dating them seriously, like
have this
sit down and have a serious conversation about like sexual dynamics, sex, what their expectations are, what their past experiences are, what they want, what they don't want, what they're afraid of, what that kind of looks like developed in their minds. You know what I mean? To kind of get to a place where you can be like, yeah, I know we're like holding off until we get married because that's the best way to do it. And because we trust and believe in God, we respect him.
Right.
We respect what he says, even if it doesn't make sense all the time. You know, I have enough respect for his character to say, you say this, I'm going to do this. That's what faith is. It's respect. But yeah, just to sit down and have that kind of deep conversation and be like, you know, here's what the fullness looks like to me. You know, and obviously there's going to be working on both ends. But like, we should be having the craziest, best sex life of anybody everywhere. You know, if God's way is the best way to do it, and I believe it is, then us being with each other should be fire. It should be fun. It should be let's get after it. It should be, you know what I mean? Yeah. To a degree, that is, on the one hand, treating sex as very sacred and very beautiful and very holy and one of these things with has its place. You know what I mean? And recognizing that. And at the other hand, it's also not taking it to this point of being like, you know, sex is all that matters. This kind of, you know what I mean? Like just enjoying it and making the most of it in your life and being a crazy, fun young person, you know, like all the things you wanted to do with those strangers when you were, you know what I mean? Like, screw it, do it with your spouse. Right. You know what I mean? Like, let's have some fun. Yeah, exactly. You know, like, like, I wouldn't want my wife before we get married being slutty out there in the world. 100%. I don't think any guy would. You know? But once she's with me, you know what I mean? Like, let's bring out those different sides of ourselves. You know, like, those are good sides. You know, masculine and feminine exist in tension, and they exist with, you know, like, those sexual sides of themselves expressed in their fullness are supposed to be, like, fun and hot and, you know what I mean? Like, like you're tantalizing and you're looking forward to it. It's just not allowing yourself to be overruled or consumed by it. But very much it has its place. It is so powerful, and that's why it does have its place. But I do think, like what you were saying, like a lot of people, especially in religious communities, get to a place where they either suppress it or repress it so much that when they do sometimes get into marriages, it's a colder version of what it should be, where there's still lines and boundaries drawn, where there should no longer be lines and boundaries drawn. Like, no, this is the place where you can go crazy. This is the place where you can let go and not worry about sinning. You know, and are there still places to learn within that? Things that may be too far? 100%. Like, again, I'm speaking very much from like a righteous point of mind. You know, but there's still a hell of a lot, you know, as far as letting go of boundaries, being sexy, being slutty, having fun, you know, doing a ton of stuff that is now, you know, green lights. Enjoy yourselves. Like, this is for the glory of God. You doing it in the right way. You know, like, don't be afraid to run now that the cage is open. You know,
Mm-hmm.
like this is a good part of you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree, 100%. You sort of like, I think you framed the midpoint that I was getting to,
Yeah.
like really, really well.
Yeah.
Sort of like that balance between keeping an awareness of the holy aspect of this, because like, in a way, not just in a way, like you're participating in a potential act of creation. Like if God sees fit in like a conjugal union between you and your wife, like he can make a person in that moment. Like that's beautiful and that's sacred and that's holy. And then at the same time, yes, totally agree. Like having that passion and that excitement and those chemicals running around in your brain and the rest of your body, like that's exciting and that's fun. And it's also like, from a purely pragmatic standpoint of view, it's really important for like the health of your marriage.
Yeah.
Like if you want to create an environment where kids can like grow up and thrive, like that's bonding. Like that's really, really important. And it's going to help keep you and your spouse together for when like times get difficult. And then like I totally agree, like on the enjoyment aspect of it. Yeah. Like I think I have a little bit, like, in case you hadn't already gathered, I think I lean a little bit more towards the holy side of things, just because I've seen how destructive, destructive, and corrosive the other end of the spectrum can be, where it's just devouring. It's purely based on pleasure.
Do you mean like inside or outside of marriage?
I'd say,
because I generally find those things where it's destructive outside of marriage.
Agree.
I will say.
Agree.
Yeah.
Agree. Yeah, I think what I'm talking about is casual encounters outside of marriage.
100%.
100%.
Yeah.
And then pornographic materials as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Super corrosive, super destructive.
Yeah. As far as pornographic materials, I really think that really has no place.
Yeah. Agree.
Anywhere. I don't know. I think there's certain things you can do as far as like reading books or growing in knowledge, which isn't necessarily evil.
Right.
But I think even there you have to be careful. Oh, this is something I'm learning to try out later,
Mm-hmm.
or this is something that, like, you know what I mean?
I'm watching
like
to get
pulling me towards that direction of, ooh, what about this? Or you know
Right.
what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
and you kind of got like, it'll be an individual. So like, yeah, I know I've heard of a lot of stories of guys like watching porn when they're in marriages.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah,
I
that's
don't.
100%. Just because you're married doesn't mean that's going to go away.
Right.
That's something you need to nip in the bud
Right.
by yourself and control yourself. But I think having an outlet for all that fire,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean? So long as you're not dealing with anything like twisted or like
Mhm.
perverted,
Yeah.
for the most part, like once you're married, a lot of it's taken care of.
Go for it. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Just because, like, yeah, you want to have sex, you should want to have sex for the most part. Like,
Mhm.
now you can have sex.
Mm-hmm.
Have sex.
Yeah. There's a bit in sort of this idea of like, it's almost like permission and encouragement from God. Like, hey, like go have sex. Like, this is what I made it for. This is Song of Songs, which is Solomon chapter 1. Let him kiss me with kisses of his mouth, for your love is better than wine, better than the fragrance of your perfumes. Your name is a flowing perfume, therefore young women love you. Draw me after you, let us run. The king has brought me to his bedchambers. Let us exult and rejoice in you. Let us celebrate your love. It is beyond wine. Rightly do they love you. And there's a ton more like that.
Yeah.
Celebrate, like, good, healthy sex is a celebration of God's love for us.
Yeah.
Like, it's sacrificial, and there's that holy element to it, and then there's also just like elation and like the pleasure
Yeah.
aspect.
Yeah. You know, God made it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's his idea.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't have to make it.
Didn't have to, but chose to.
Could have just been a handshake.
Right. Hey, like, you want to make some soldiers?
Yeah, handshake.
Handshake.
You know? It's not.
Yeah.
So, actually live it to its fullest.
This is a good conversation.
It is a good conversation. Do you want to touch on music a little bit?
Probably should. Yeah. I know that's what we came here to do.
Yeah. So I listened to your entire album.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
What'd you think?
I'm trying to put it into words in the right way.
Okay.
A, kudos to you for putting that entire thing together.
Yeah.
Like, hats off.
Thanks, man.
Yeah. And what I want to discuss it's kind of related to you individually, but it opens a broader topic
Okay.
to myself, to freaking any musician out there.
Okay.
What, like, was there a certain vibe you were going for, or like thing you're trying to communicate? I know the whole overall theme of what I got from the album was a message of a little bit of wrestling with God, right? As far as like, why don't I have the things I want in my life yet? The things that I've desired. You know,
Yeah.
there's a sense of longing to it.
Yeah.
A sense of almost like waiting on you and being faithful in that way. And then there's, you know, and pushing through and continuing. And then there were just some songs about just some other things as well. There's a bit of a mix.
Sure.
But what vibe were you going for when you created it? As far as like ideas you were trying to communicate, I would love to hear that from, you know, the mouth of the horse.
Huh. Thanks, man.
Yeah.
So full disclosure, that record is actually like a collection of songs that I've written over the past, like, there's one song on there that's 8 years old. Like,
so it's a little bit of everything.
It's a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
I'm Gone is like 8 years old, and then there's a few other ones. Like, some of them are as recent as 2020.
Okay.
And so, but I think it all does, and like you're 100% right. Like, I think it all does reflect the state of my mind over the past couple of years, especially. Some of the things that you touched on are 100% accurate. Like, God, why did this happen? Why do I still not have the things that I want and like long for? I think there's definitely some of that. And I am really glad that I was able to like bring God's voice into it, because I have a rule when I'm writing songs, like, do not whine.
Yeah.
Like, no whining, because I don't think there's anything redemptive about a song that just whines.
No, 100% I agree with you.
Yeah. So I'm glad for the angle of faith that like is on this record. So like, yeah, there are these things that I'm like wrestling with and upset about. But there's also like, hey God, like I'm talking to you about this. I almost wanted to call it like Lamentations Part 2 or something like that, or Lamentations Reloaded, something like that.
That's good. So the point that I wanted to make was, okay, you've got piano and vocals in most of it, right? I mean, some of them are produced up a little bit more.
Yep.
Some of them are piano vocals, maybe one or two other elements, but that's kind of how it is. Overall, I very much got the feeling from that entire record of Lamentations.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Definitely.
Kind of like more of like, I wouldn't say full sad boy, but just a sadder vibe as far as like dealing with some of those issues. You know what I mean? I think the cover of it definitely illustrates that, you know, pretty well. So I was, in looking at my own work, and one of the things I want to talk to you about is like, okay, how does arrangement, instrumentation, as well as like melody change the kind of song? Like all these different factors that go into changing the vibe of the song, you know what I mean? As well as lyrical content, all these different things. And then what are you as an artist, what am I as an artist trying to put out? Does that make sense?
Kind of.
Because like you listen to an EDM song, it's about dance, it's high energy, it's got a certain melodic line, it's doing a certain thing to get you to a certain place. You listen to like a soul song, you know what I mean? It's got a different kind of feeling to it. It's almost like these different elements help create this vibe, which then almost transfers a mindset. Like I listen to sad music or certain things for a certain amount of time, and it almost like transfers some of that spirit to me.
To you,
if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Whereas you listen to like a hype song, like a rap song, you know, like get back, you know,
you
don't know me like that, you know what I mean? Like
get back.
Yeah, exactly. Like that'll get you into that kind of mood.
Yeah.
You know, so I think just like a lot of stuff, what I create sometimes is I'm not super self-aware about it, especially in the beginning when I started creating it. And so it's like, okay, moving forward, what kind of music do I want to create consciously? How do I make those sounds using melody and instrumentation? And then almost on top of that, the lyrics are just a bonus. So I feel like so much of the vibe that you create with the song and transfer is entirely done musically.
Aesthetically. Yeah.
Like, it's almost an instrumental.
Yeah.
And then you just come in and add lyrics.
Right.
As like a bonus.
Definitely.
You know, type of thing.
Definitely. I understand what you're getting at now. And like, just for case in point, I think a lot of the songs that we hear on the, and it's not always true. Like, I think certain genres prioritize like the feel of the song. I think country typically prioritizes lyrics over the feel of the song, versus like alt rock is typically a little more abstract lyric-wise. Like, the song that's coming to mind is, "Oh, I'm available just for kicks now." Like, lyrically makes no sense. Right, yeah. Lyrically makes no sense.
Yeah.
But people love it because it's a vibe, to
Yeah,
your point.
it's a vibe.
I would
say the country with its more sparse arrangement kind of plays perfectly into the whole like
More
general
lyrics.
sadder, you know what I mean,
Yeah.
storytelling country.
Yes. Yeah. There's less going on in the song,
Yeah.
so you can focus more on the narrative.
Yeah, which tends to make it sadder. There's a lot of old country which is very much like, clearly this is the sound of the hills and wind blowing through it. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And like
Sure.
someone
Sure.
just like ding 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 ding. You know what I mean? My dog died, my truck got stolen. Like,
I love that was Mozart, right? Or was that Beethoven? Dun, 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 dun.
oh, that's Beethoven.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah,
Oh, okay,
yeah.
cool.
I think so. Yeah,
I think so. That sounds right. We'll get blasted about it later. Like, oh, you idiots! It's Bach. Like, it's Schubin.
This is Ludwig.
Yeah. So yeah, to answer your question. So like, your general question is sort of around, how do you go about shaping a vibe?
Yeah. Is that something you've been conscious
Like,
of?
I consciously do.
Yeah, and then like,
I would say so. Yeah.
yeah.
I think that part of it is bringing your own personal experience into it, which I think is very, very necessary. We can touch on that in a minute, but I think from like a musically like aesthetic perspective, like how the track sounds, ignoring words, I think that's dictated by what speaks to you the most. Like, because why did you get into music? Why did you start playing music in the first place? Did you just like pick up a keyboard and pick up some software? Like, never heard any music before in your life?
Yeah.
Really? Oh, actually,
And it's because the reason I did actually is because I hated all the worship music in church.
oh,
I
okay,
couldn't sing it,
okay,
and it made me so angry
okay,
to sit there and hear these songs being played, and then I felt like I had to sing. So like, you want to worship God, right?
Okay.
In church. But every time I started to sing, just the lyrics and the kind of slow, like, "Oh Jesus, you're my lover," you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It freaking drove me up a wall.
okay.
But there's times I left.
So
church.
and this is like Hillsong, like
yeah. This is
Bethel.
modern, like
Modern
not hymns and
contemporary.
stuff. I love
Okay.
hymns. You know,
Hymns are
there's
awesome.
some really good ones.
Yeah.
Not all of them. Some of them are really good. But yeah, just modern contemporary Christian music that they played at like 90% of the churches.
Okay,
It made me so angry.
okay.
Like literally,
This
like
is surprising.
fighting mad.
Really?
Like I would leave sometimes.
That bad?
Yeah, and so I was complaining. I was walking around outside of. I was on a military base at the time. I was in the military. I was walking around outside. I was praying
Yeah.
because my roommate lived very close with me. There
Yeah.
was like no space in my room.
Yeah.
So I was praying and like I was telling God, complaining, whining.
Yeah.
I was like, "Your worship music sucks." I just felt a very, very strong impression that he was like, "Well, either do something about it or shut up."
Okay.
And I was like,
Okay.
"Okay." So like, I bought like the most basic $50 starter pack.
Okay.
Like, little Sony PreSonus One thing with a DAW.
Okay.
Just Studio One, and I started just screwing around.
Okay.
And that's what got me into music.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. So you answered that question, or you answered my question, not in the way that I thought you were going to, but I think we can still bring it back around to
Okay.
my
What was your
original
point?
point.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's really, really cool. But my point is that like, you didn't pick up music like just because, like, you didn't just like, oh, like balance my 401k, I guess it's time to write some music. Like,
Yeah.
you have an opinion,
100%,
like something spoke to you emotionally, and like it made you want to like say something. And so my point is tapping into that and understanding that sort of helps dictate what the vibe should look like, or how to go about creating a vibe. So like, if what got you into music in the first place was your hatred for contemporary Christian music, then if it was me, what I would do is look at the features of contemporary Christian music and then go in the opposite direction. So it'd be something like, okay, there's usually like these big swells where like the drummer kind of goes dut 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 dut, and there's like this big, it's almost like an EDM sort of build up, and it's supposed to evoke this big emotional thing, and it has like this general sort of God, you're so good, super high level language. So I'd look at all of those things and be like, okay, high level language, big emotional arc in each song, typically pretty loud in each song with like echoey U2 type guitars. How do I make something that's like a lot more dry and like stripped down? How do I make something that's got like more personal, specific lyrics that's still like giving God glory?
So I've actually given this a lot of thought.
Okay.
And you're not far off as far as like, okay, a side point real quick. I think a lot of what you need to do with music, for me, it's like painting, right?
Okay.
So like if you want to use red, if you want to use blue, if you want to use broad strokes, if you want to do realism, if you want to do abstraction, like there's different techniques you need to know.
Mm-hmm.
And different sounds, different rhythms, different grooves, different tonal scales for melodies, you know what I mean? Like, are you doing like half steps? Are you doing like, you know what I mean? Like create different feelings in somebody. So to a certain point, it's just an art form where the more you know, the more you can create.
Yes.
To a better exact level. Like knowledge is power across the board.
Agree.
But what I really don't like about the Christian worship music, and I've realized what it was, is that so much of it places you in a kind of, I would almost say like a woman's point of viewpoint to God, where you're just receiving and you're constantly like whatever. And I think that's good for women and it's good for men to a certain point. But I think because all of it is in that way, it completely negates the side of God, which is like strong. You know what I mean? Because the side of God that is strong, that is powerful, that is to be respected, that is to be feared, kind of what I was talking about earlier, isn't represented in churches in a lot of ways. And I think it's the problem with our society in general, is that there's this over-focus on like the feminine side of God, which I do believe exists. Because I believe God created man and female, right? Of like loving and forgiveness and nurturing and strength and those different things. And like, but it's focused on in such like a woman's way. And the fire, the respect, the hard lines, the standards are oftentimes, especially more so, I would say, much more so in Protestant churches.
Agree.
Is swept under the rug.
Agree with that aspect.
We don't want to deal with that. We just want you to always feel like, you know what I mean?
Yes.
As opposed to, one of the things I do love about the Catholic Church and Catholicism is that has a much greater place in things.
Yeah.
And that's not shied away from as much. And you see, like, I can see a massive difference in Catholics from Protestants, which is why I hang out with so many Catholics so much of the time.
There you go.
It's because those elements are there.
Yeah.
To some degree.
Yeah.
And yeah, and that's why I couldn't stand like your Hillsong for the most part. Like some of their songs are great. Don't get me wrong, I do love some of their songs. Like I'll vibe with the Oceans every now and then. But when you're just overwhelmingly barraged by 99% of it, it's just like, oh, take me to your secret place. I'm waiting for you. You know, like you're completely missing the side where it's like God's like, why don't you get up and go do this thing? You know what I mean? Have real change in your life. Like to respect God is to have faith in God. And if you really respected what he said and had real faith, you wouldn't be sinning. You wouldn't be continuing to fall into things because it's as real as your hand in front of your face. And so sin is always the lack of faith because it's a lack of belief and it's a lack of respect for what's true. If somebody holds a gun to your head and says, Matt, don't sleep with that girl. I'm going to blow your head off. Are you going to sleep with that girl?
Probably not.
No, right?
How hot is she?
Well, screw it.
Yeah, that's right.
Pull the trigger.
Pull the trigger.
Yeah.
Pull the trigger.
You know, but like, we don't believe in God in the same way. We don't respect that power and that authority in the same way. We forget that he exists. We have a lack of belief. We have a lack of faith. Because if we understood, oh, this is the creator of the cosmos who says this is the best way and I'm made in this image, and then love is incorporated into that, it would also be like a gun to your head, but in a good way.
Right. You
know what I mean? Like it's a double-sided coin. It's not only is this way better for you, but the consequences of trespassing against this are going to be painful. You know? And it's when you walk in full faith, I think at that point you cease to be a sinner. Because you're believing in the cross, you're believing in Christ, you're believing in redemption, and you're also believing in, like, you're doing it out of love, and this is the right choice for me, while at the same time being very aware of the consequences, the suffering that will result if you do the wrong thing. Not because God's evil, because those are the consequences of doing the wrong thing. You know what I mean? And I think that is completely missing in our church, because people, in much of the church, in Western society, because it's, and I'm going to be honest with you, I think you can see it in a lot of the guys in the church, and especially in like Protestant churches. There's this entire side of them that they just have chosen, they refuse to develop because they think it's evil or wrong in some way. Kind of like the sexuality piece. You know what I mean? A lot of people are just not venturing into that because they don't want to say the wrong thing or go in the wrong direction or be too mean or be too forward.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And so they've confused love with being nice. confused who they should be as being this little freaking simpleton who's just being told what to do and is happy. You know what I mean? As opposed to actually doing difficult things and making hard choices and fighting in the ways that they know how to fight, you know, in their communities and in their lives and in their families' lives and all those things. Like, and I think that's why, en masse, most guys, when they meet like Christian guys or like guys who are actually like dudes and want to get out there, want to have sex, want to have, you know, all these different things, they look at the church and like, that's not a viable option. I don't respect any guy in that church. Like, nobody there would have my back in a fight. Nobody there can go and take what they want. Nobody there has the strength to do anything. They just sit back and pray about it and don't do anything. And there's nothing, like, prayer is incredibly effectual, and it's incredibly good, and it's incredibly good in all these different ways, but the problem is it's designed to be partnered with action in God. And so many people refuse to take the responsibility of their own lives upon themselves and actually do things. So instead what they do is they just sit back and say, I'm just going to receive and wait and do nothing, and I'm going to be nice to people and make no waves and make no mistakes and make no challenges in this world.
I agree with like a lot of what you're saying. I really do. And like I know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
I know what you're talking about. Yeah,
100%.
Like there's a lack of the more fatherly aspects of God, the more like fear and awe of the Lord.
Yeah.
His role as father, as creator of the universe, as judge is underplayed.
It is.
And then there's also like, I think some of this is societally influenced, where masculinity, strength, even healthy forms of like aggression or anger are downplayed. Guys are supposed to be like sanitized. We're supposed to sort of like be in line with our khakis and our nice press shirt tucked into our pants. I experienced some of that as well. So what do you think should happen? Like, what needs to happen?
I think there needs to be a cultural shift towards like love of strength, love of power, men especially like glorying in that and like seeking glory and chasing after what God is and to be like God and to rejoice in the stronger elements of God and to develop that side of themselves and recognizing, just like sexuality, those are very, very good things.
Yes.
They just need to be used a good way.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And like aggression, fighting, as far as like competition and doing these different things and pushing yourself and like rougher circumstances and not being afraid to take what you want in a good way. Like, these are all good things. There just needs to be a societal shift that shows like, no, this is really, really good. This is what you ought to be. The model for this. And again, like, I think one of the big parts of that is showing God to be this thing as well. And the more people can see, I was like, oh, God is like this, and this is good. This is what I should want to be like. Then they can be more like that. When God's shown more as a loving, whatever this is. And again, I still think like the fatherly side of God is very loving. It's just manifested slightly differently. You know what I mean? But like, because of our worship music, because of all these messages in a certain way, like people have developed in society, you know, that has influenced it, have developed more towards being what we have right now, which is almost like this sanitized version. Oh, don't be like that. Don't make waves. Don't say that. Oh, that was wrong, Jimmy, because you tried. Right. You know, as opposed to, no, like, well done, Jimmy. Get off your ass. Go again. Right. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I think the more we have worship music and these different things which do extol the virtues of God's strength and His power and His don't screw with me and His here's the law, here's judgment, here's respect. It's not that you want to get rid of love, it's that or those different things. It's not that you want to get rid of grace or kindness or those kind of softer side of things. It's you want to balance them out so the picture's whole. Yeah. So we can encompass the fullness of God, His full aspect. So we can have the one side and at the same time have the strength to know when to use that and when to make hard decisions. Yes. And to be effective in this world. Yes. So that, you know, the Christians of today and people of today are people who are incredibly powerful, incredibly hard to screw with, you know, can take whatever they want, make whatever they want in this world, understand hard work, understand everything, you know what I mean? Right. Are unable to be defeated because they keep moving forward, and at the same time, from that place of just crushing life and being ruthless, choose to love and choose to be kind and choose to give back and choose to care about others. Yes. And you know what I mean? Yes. But you can't have the love without strength. Otherwise, it's just weakness and you're being nice. And it is what it is, and you can't stop it. So it's not like you have a choice anyway. as opposed to if you're ruthless and you're strong and you're able to do whatever the hell you want, then being kind and being loving and being good in those ways is a choice. And that's virtue.
That last piece of like love and strength and that combination, I think is the piece that I really, really like. And like what I was going to share, like as you were thinking, like this passage came to mind, you know, the Beatitudes, like blessed are the such and such.
Yeah.
So I think the one that you're describing in like this, and I agree, and I think a lot of like men and women in Christianity would agree with you. Like, I don't think, and I mean like even from a worldly perspective, I think, oh man, there's so many like angles to this, because like on one hand we have what like Hollywood and the media tell us is right and good and holy. And as much as I think that that's like a thermometer, a reflection of the culture, I also know that it's made by a group of elites in California who are almost all entirely liberal.
And pushing something.
Pushing some sort of narrative.
Yeah.
And if they can get you to believe the narrative of the patriarchy or the bourgeoisie, whatever it is, then that gives them power. Because, oh, we're the ones who recognize this, we're the ones who understand it, you should trust us, something along those lines. But regardless of how the narrative got there, I think that there is a narrative popular right now that aggression is bad, anger is bad, violence is bad, being masculine is bad, and so they're asking us to become more like the feminine side of humanity. That's for everybody. And like the opposite is actually true for women. Like they're asking women to become more like men. Like, hey, be assertive, be a go-getter, get out there, right?
These things.
Get out, get into STEM. Like, why are you not a CEO?
Yeah. Spend the next 40 years of your life working 60 hours a week for a career.
Right.
Which, if you want, whatever, but it comes with a sacrifice.
It does come with a cost, yes. And so, but like, the reason I bring that up is, in spite of that narrative, I still think the old standards are still true. And the old standard, I would say, is that your body matters. Your body is programmed from the factory for certain things.
Yeah.
Like, we're, like, our bone structure, yours and mine, as dudes, our bone structure is designed to be, like, fighters, protectors, to, like, we're meant to go out and fight the unknown.
Yeah.
And women's bone structure and skeleton is not nearly as dense as ours. Like, the way that their heart is calibrated is, like, by nature, from the factory, on average, more calibrated towards, like, being nurturing and, like, being mothers and, like, propagating the species. That's not to say that, like, women can't manifest masculine traits and that men can't manifest feminine traits, but that's the baseline that each of us are coming from. So regardless of what like society tells you, I think that old baseline is always going to be there. Like, sure, you might, like, we've had maybe 20 years of this stuff. Try fighting against like 4.5 billion years of biology. Like, who's going to win, right? So, and like, I'm being long-winded here. I'm like tying this back to this idea of like embracing the masculine aspects of God. So like, I say that first point to say that if you're like, you're a guy, I'm a guy, we're having this conversation. If you're a guy listening to this conversation, feel empowered to cultivate those aspects of yourself, because that is what you're made for. It truly is.
Yeah. Feel a duty, I would say.
Yeah, there's a duty to cultivate those things. But then at the same time, like, there is such a thing, and like, it's true for any emotion, any sort of aspect of humanity. There is such a thing where it goes too far. There is a thing where aggression goes too far. There is a thing where strength goes too far. And we can define that if you want, but like, sort of what you were saying earlier that stuck with me, like, hey, Christians should be like strong. They should have like strength, but they choose to love. Coming back to the Beatitudes, one of them is, blessed are the merciful, blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. And the translation of the word meek, I forget what the exact word in Greek is, but it's essentially like, blessed are they who have swords and choose not to use them. Blessed are they who could act. Blessed are they who could be violent and choose not to. And I think that's, as Christian men, what we're called to do. We're called to like cultivate that aspect of strength in us, set healthy boundaries, even something as simple as like physical fitness and like making sure that your body's in a good place.
Yeah.
So that we can have those resources ready to go. Have you read any John Eldredge?
I did read A Call to the Wild or something.
Wild at Heart?
Yeah.
Did you like that book?
I did like it, yeah. I don't remember exactly what it was about, but I think the overall theme of it, which is like, get out, push yourself more, be more exploratory, do what you want to do, kind of cultivate fire within yourself.
Yeah.
Right? I think that's important.
Mm-hmm.
I do think having fire as a guy, and by that I mean like being able to pull up this part of yourself and just to screw it because it goes and does something stupid or could be construed as stupid is incredibly necessary.
Yes.
I think that's how you overcome things. I think that's what gets you up in the morning. I think that's what pushes you through hard work. You know, you just cultivate this kind of like almost angst and then channel that into, no, I'm going to freaking do it.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of like, yeah.
I agree. Like that having something that gets you like out of bed in the morning, like you're saying, like the way Eldredge puts it in that book is every guy must have a battle to fight, an adventure to live, and a beauty to rescue. So like battle to fight, I think that like there's something that we gotta like push against. There's something that we gotta like, there's like some conflict here and that like sharpens us in some way. Do you know Tennessee Williams? Like he's a playwright from like he did A Streetcar Named Desire.
I'm semi-familiar with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he's got a quote, and I like used to read this to myself in college. It's when you fully apprehend the emptiness of a life without struggle, when you realize that not poverty but wealth is the wolf at the door, and all of these little niceties that success is heir to, when you realize that with the conflict removed, a man is a sword cutting daisies, then you're in a position of knowing where the danger lies.
That's cool.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah. Yeah. I would say the one thing is like, if anybody is thinking about, okay, maybe I'm going overboard or I'm not, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to go overboard with these things. I would probably say you're probably so far from going overboard, you just need to swing for the frickin' fences across all fields.
Sure.
And just trust that time will mitigate it. You'll learn from any mistakes that you make, and you'll wind up hopefully somewhere in the middle. Because you're probably so far on this end.
Right.
You know what I mean?
If you're that concerned about it.
Like, from what you could be as far as developing these different things. I have personally found that with myself. Like, if you were to take one of us and put us up next to, like, an Italian in the Renaissance period, like, you know what I mean?
That dude would
Like
be
the
the gangster.
the differences in mentality and, like, ability to just do whatever the hell you want.
Where's my pasta?
So,
Don't make me smack you.
I would probably say you could probably be more aggressive than you think, more forward than you think, more bold than you think, more crazed than you think. And for the most part, as long as you're not directly starting fights, you might get embarrassed a lot, but things are going to be fine.
And that concludes this month's episode of the Fraternus Forge podcast. Again, thank you so much for listening. Hope that this was a useful and life-giving conversation to you. If you have questions or suggestions for future episodes, definitely send those to fraternusforge@gmail.com, and I'll see you in the next episode. Peace.